The senior's family that I had a crush on for 3 years went bankrupt. The pride of the sky was in debt overnight. The job was gone. His girlfriend ran away, and he was so poor that he claimed. So, I decided to reach out to him. No, reach out. Just as I threw his contract in front of him and loudly announced that I would be his creditor from this day forward, he was completely misunderstood, thinking that I was like a pervert, so he coveted his body. He said to me contemptuously, "Just because you have a lot of money, you still want to learn from people's unspoken rules." Grover Bobby went bankrupt, and probably the happiest person was me. After he was heavily indebted, his girlfriend, who was talking about marriage, broke up with him decisively, moved away and changed his mobile phone overnight, and cut him off for fear of being implicated. I was so excited that I didn't sleep all night. He was short of money, and I happened to have enough money to spend on the next life. So, I resolutely stretched out my claws to him. No, reach out. I took over his debts resolutely, drove out the money-lending underworld, settled his parents, and took him to the hotel with a fever to settle down temporarily. He was so stupid that he went downstairs to his girlfriend and waited for the night, and refused to leave even when it rained. What I waited for was my girlfriend sitting in a small luxury car, carrying a Hermes shopping bag full load. In the room, Grover Bobby was asleep. He has a good skin that makes people feel swoon, and the peach blossom eyes that don't usually look at me are now closed, probably having nightmares, and frowning when he falls asleep. He was sweating profusely, and I wrung out a towel to wipe him. I unbuttoned Grover Bobby's shirt one by one, the first time in my life that I had unbuttoned a man, and I was a little nervous. With a force, it also broke people's buttons. After untying the two, my eyes lit up, and the handkerchief in my hand was almost unstable. Whoa, that's big abs. I can't see that Zuba is still free to exercise. I was dazzled, my throat was dry, and my heart was beating wildly. But before I could wipe it a few times, I jerked my head up. Grover Bobby was found awake. Oops, got caught. I raised my handkerchief to prove that I was doing my business. Senior brother, you have a fever and you have a lot of sweat. Hurry up and take a shower. Grover Bobby looked into the bathroom, his eyes getting colder. I was in a hurry to book a room, and I didn't see that this was a couple's suite. The bathroom is transparent, so you can see inside and out. Grover Bobby had a high self-esteem, and the look in his eyes wanted to tear me to pieces. Jane Du Bois, why are you taking my family's debts? What do you mean? You pity me? I really felt sorry for him and felt sorry for him, but as soon as I opened my mouth, I said the wrong thing. How can it be? I just like your face, senior brother. My face. Grover Bobby laughed. He completely misunderstood now, thinking that I was a pervert, so he coveted his body. Just because you have a lot of money, and you still want to learn the unspoken rules of people, don't blame him for misunderstanding. I'm a person, and I have a good psychological quality. To put it mildly, it's just faceless and skinless. Seeing that he was so defensive of me, I could only comfort others. Senior brother, don't worry, I really didn't look carefully. I don't know how many abs you have. What I said was true. I was so nervous. The eyes and hands and feet are in charge of each other. Grover Bobby's face turned pale and red, and he glared at me, but the good upbringing made him unable to say anything unpleasant, so he could only hold back one sentence, make a face. Jane Du Bois, how can you go on like this? I still grinned. Senior brother, you should also have some eyes. If I am really a pervert, you don't have the strength to take a bath now. My dad always taught me that to do business, you have to know how to copy the bottom. Once you see a good thing, you must shoot quickly, ruthlessly, and endure loneliness. My ears and ears tell me that Grover Bobby has been depressed lately. He used to be very diligent, going for a morning run, and then going to the library, but now he locks himself in his dorm room and doesn't go out, and he drinks heavily. It is understandable that the pride of the sky held by everyone fell from the clouds, and there were so many people who watched his jokes. No matter how strong he was a young man in his early 20s. He wants to cheer up. He needs strong medicine. I can sort of figure out Grover Bobby's temper. He refuses to give alms, so I can only stimulate him. Grover Bobby scolded me as a pervert, and I wanted to do it with tears in my eyes. but he's too guarded against me. I went to look for him in the dorm room, and he got out of bed with a smell of alcohol, completely transparent to me. I noticed that there was something dirty on his clothes, and I reached out and patted him, but he reflexively buckled my wrist tightly. I screamed in pain. Careless. Grover Bobby has been a real black belt in karate since elementary school. It's more than enough to deal with a soft girl like me. Grover Bobby, too, knew he was overreacting, and he whispered sorry. There was a mirror behind the door of their dormitory, and he couldn't help but laugh when he saw his unkempt appearance. Jane Dubois, I look like this. Such an unseemly. Do you still think I have hope? His self-defeating tone silenced me. I looked at him with a complicated face and asked rhetorically, why do you think that only suits and leather shoes deserve hope, but ordinary people don't? You usually only go to the shopping mall for dinner. You go out from Zioxamen today. Go to that street to feel it. Go and see. Who is not trying to make money? I deadlifted him out. The aunt who runs a multigrain pancake stall on West Street is disabled, and her husband took over the stall after her husband died in a car accident. And she gets up at 4 or 5 o'clock every day to set up a stall to raise 2 college students. One of them is still a PhD this year, and another one is in our department, and he signed an offer from a big factory this year. Hope is made by one's own efforts, not by drinking to kill one's sorrows. As I said this, the sneering smile on Grover Bobby's lips froze, and he looked at me with a complicated expression. You have no worries about food and clothing. Is it convincing to say these words? I smiled. I used to think so. The money was really good until I stood at the door of the chemotherapy room. We have the money to find the best doctor for our mother, the best treatment conditions, but the arrival of cancer will make us really sober. And no matter how much money you have, you are just a helpless bystander. I can't even share her pain for a moment. He doesn't know how much I envy him for having both parents now. But I didn't want to say so much. I just deliberately raised my chin. Senior brother, are you deliberately pretending to be pitiful and want me to cancel my debts? Grover Bobby was stunned for a moment, then gritted his teeth. Of course not. Since it's not, don't look like this. I warned him very seriously. Grover Bobby, you have hands and feet, education and ability. Don't think that I like you very much. I will give you debt forgiveness. You must repay. I also have to calculate the interest. Sober up. Give me good money. That day, he sat alone on the playground for a long time, and I was afraid that he would not be able to think about it, so I secretly sat in the distance. The sun had not yet set. Dark clouds covered the top, and raindrops fell. The students who were walking trotted back to the dormitory, and he stood up, and I thought he was going back to the dormitory as well. He walked past the crowd and into the empty playground. The rain was getting heavier and heavier, and if it weren't for the playground lights still on, I could barely see his back. And he started to run slower, then faster and faster, lap after lap. I couldn't count how many laps he ran, only to see him keep rushing forward, even if he was exhausted. He didn't want to stop. He ran out of order. He fell and ran, until he couldn't stand up. He was drenched in rain, and perhaps only at this time, the sound of thunderstorms could drown out his angry roar. When he saw me the next day, he shaved his beard and changed into clean clothes. He said to me in a firm voice, Jane Dubois, I will absolutely give you back. I swear. I think of Grover Bobby, who shines brightly, and I love the way he runs and wins, and I love the way he looks when he wins the debate. Many people will like his confident and proud appearance, but alas, I'm not one of them. I wanted to help Grover Bobby, in large part because he saved me. 2 years ago, I had just entered college, and I didn't know how to be sophisticated, so the other seniors in the department asked us to go to a bar. I was unguarded and drank the mixed wine, cup after cup. By the time I realized something wasn't quite right, my consciousness was blurred. On the way to the hotel, I luckily ran into Grover Bobby. We met at the orientation party, and Grover Bobby remembered me, and knew that the gang had a bad reputation. He stopped the person and picked up the phone. I contacted the counselor. She came to pick up people, and none of you are allowed to leave until she comes. Those people thought he was nosy, and the two parties clashed and fought fiercely. There were 4 on the other side, and Grover Bobby was 4 against 1. I vaguely saw that in the night. under the street lamp. He was constantly beaten, and stood up. Someone even hit him on the head with a beer bottle. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital. The counselor who came here criticized me harshly. You too. You have to be wary outside, especially in a place like a bar. If it weren't for your brother, what would you do this time? I thought I had a good amount of wine and a few glasses of fruit wine were fine. But I was wrong. I looked down and took a peek at Grover Bobby. His hand was slightly fractured, and he had just finished the photograph, and now it was bandaged. But the most regrettable thing was that beautiful face. The forehead had 7 stitches, and there were still blood stains on his shirt from the fight. Usually Sven win. I didn't expect the fight to be so ruthless. The word senior brother is blocked in my throat, and I am about to get hot. My heart is like a seed, nay, like an epiphany, taking root and sprouting in the raging heat. Beautiful, grand and intimate. I had no choice but to thank me softly. Senior brother, thank you so much this time. Grover Bobby was cold and unsmiling at people he didn't know, and he gave me a look without much emotion. Thank you for having more snacks in the future. This fruit wine doesn't feel drunk when you drink it, but the alcohol content is very high. Whoever tells you that this wine won't get drunk in the future, you have to pay attention. It was so cold and hot. I nodded quickly, and when I mustered up the courage to continue, he picked up a phone call, his face smiling from absent-minded to affectionate. Hey, Grace Huxley, I'm in the hospital. I'm in the hospital. The chairs in the hospital hallway were so close that I could hear the voices inside. It's a sweet female voice. It turned out that Grover Bobby was going to take his girlfriend to dinner and shopping, but he saved me temporarily, and the date must have been in vain. He coaxed on the phone, don't be angry. Didn't you say you wanted to buy a bag last time? I left the card for you. Go buy it yourself. It turns out that he has a girlfriend and buys bags for people. I stared at my crumpled hands, and the heat in my head ebbed and waned. The flower that has just bloomed in my heart, and the heart that was smoking hot a second ago was cut off by the roots. I pursed my lips and apologized dryly. Senior brother, you've delayed your date with your girlfriend. He casually said that it was okay, and that there would be opportunities in the future. This was our first encounter. Many people admire his successful appearance, but what really moved me was that he was so embarrassed that he refused to admit defeat. I want him to stand up on his own, always proud, and go all the way. Even if you don't like me, it doesn't matter at all. I like a flower, a cloud, and Mount Fuji, which is not private, but these are not in themselves prisable, and there is no reason why they must be owned by me. Heartbeat is originally a matter of wishful thinking on my part, and I don't need anyone to be responsible. Being a female pervert was too risky, and I immediately changed course. I declared, from this day on, I'm going to torture Grover Bobby, and I'm happy to see him work hard, and I'm happy to see him suffer. And who makes him not look long, and don't like me? He doesn't accept simple mercy, but if he presses him, as a creditor, he will be obedient instead. It's useless to just say it. I'm still doing it. I went to my second year of graduate school, and after a big nap, I rubbed my eyes and woke up, and then instructed Grover Bobby to buy me a designated cold drink. I asked a lot, senior brother. I want to eat the taro milk tea with tea flavor in the street tea, and I want to add pearl coconut popping beads, and 5 points of sugar are all ice. That's right, the milk caps should be divided into separate packs, otherwise they will melt. The more I went into detail, the tighter Grover Bobby's brow became. His ex-girlfriend was a dancer who was very strict about eating and drinking, and counted calories every day. He expressed confusion at my habit of drinking a cup of milk tea when I am happy and a cup of milk tea when I am unhappy. Grover Bobby took a few deep breaths and closed his textbook again. Jane Du Bois, it's almost class. I said, yes, so you have to trot and sprint back and forth 100 meters with the results of your brother's body, and you can catch up. He's been tormented by me lately, but I've been pinching him by 7 inches. I wallpapered the debt contract. Every time he was about to get angry, I would silently raise it, and then gently remind, I am a creditor, and my labor force is my face, so my brother must sacrifice one. Right, but if you're willing to be me. My gaze swept over his chest and slender neck. Before I could finish my meaningful words, Grover Bobby immediately stood up in a rage. Don't say it. I'll go. Ha ha. I watched him rush out of the door in a panic, and I couldn't stop laughing. He really thought I was hungry, and would rip off his clothes. I took out my mirror and looked at it, and I was very satisfied with my wicked persona. I tabulated the debts of Grover Bobby's family. I said, in the future, if you help me do things and do a good job, I can deduct how much money I can deduct, and exchange my labor for money, which is very in line with the principles of economics. Right. The first time I showed him the form, Grover Bobby said it wasn't scientific. I thought he wasn't happy with the price. He reminded very seriously, the price you set far exceeds the market price. Do you know how much firewood, rice, oil and salt cost? I can't take advantage of you. Yes, I know somewhat, but I want to help him more. But Grover Bobby didn't give me a chance to take advantage of it, and repriced it, which was completely the same as the market price. His self-esteem does not allow him to take advantage. It seems that the method of agitation is really useful, and he can't stand to be looked down upon. When I bought the milk tea, I touched it at room temperature, and I said, "Didn't you say that you want all the ice?" It was a scorching heat outside, and the breath exhaled was piping hot, and Grover Bobby's clothes were half wet, and he ran all the way back just in time for the start of class. I muttered, "You must have forgotten my request." The teacher arrived, and Grover Bobby opened the book. His voice lowered. He told me angrily, "Girls, drink less ice and drink warm. Last time, my eldest aunt drank an ice drink in front of me, and the pain was so painful that I almost fainted, and in the end, he carried me to the school doctor's office. According to the vicious woman, I have to play tricks and make him run again." But I held the milk tea. My palm was warm, and I remembered what he said about girls. In his eyes, I used to be a girl. It's a girl who can't drink ice. The corners of my mouth curled, and I held the book up, covering half of my face. I'm happy, but I still have to hold back. Yes, it's okay to be gentle. Just forgive me for once. My vicious female creditor is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Grover Bobby lived as one of my group running errands, and homework help. My homework is handed over to him. I will happily lie flat, and brush the live broadcast. Buy this and buy that, happy like a fairy. The classmates who had seen Grover Bobby's jokes couldn't bear it anymore, and came to me. "He's miserable enough. Why torture him like this?" I laughed. "No way. Who wants him to owe me money?" They don't understand that people need a breath of air, anger, and unwillingness when they are in trouble. It takes the courage to fight to the death against fate. So, I don't mind being hated by Grover Bobby. In the city of G, there is a lot of rain in the summer, and when classes are over, the rain pours down. The school building is a 10-minute walk from the girls' dormitory, and I ask Grover Bobby on Weshit, "Brother, where are you? If it's too far, don't come to pick it up. I'm afraid he's getting wet." However, due to the personality, I said fiercely, "If Miss Ben waits too long, don't come. I have precious time." And I even made an appointment to do a manicure in the evening. Unexpectedly, Grover Bobby predicted my prediction, and he replied, "I'm downstairs. Come down." I immediately fell on my talks. Grover Bobby holds a large umbrella in his hand, puts one hand in his pocket, and carries a cup of hot cocoa for me. He now understands that eating people is short-mouthed, and the best way to buy me is to feed me. And every day I eat and drink well, and under the double attack of beautiful food, my vicious personality is crumbling, and I can't support it anymore. I actually had a small parasol in my tote bag, but when I saw this, I immediately buckled it up, and pretended not to have it. The rain was getting heavier and heavier, and Grover Bobby was annoying to me, but he was a gentlemanly man, and his umbrella was crooked to my side, and he was half wet. When I was struggling with whether or not to confess that I had an umbrella, a sports car drove past without slowing down, and Grover Bobby said a word of caution and quickly shut me down. He had so much strength that half of my body was pressed against my chest when I hugged him like this. My heart was pounding. It was raining so heavily, and the Ferrari supercar didn't slow down, and drove by arrogantly, and the water splashed me all over, and the car stopped, and I thought the owner wanted to come down and apologize. Unexpectedly, down from the co-pilot was Grover Bobby's ex-girlfriend, who quickly broke up and dumped him after he went bankrupt. "What's it called?" "Oh, Grace Huxley. Damn, sure a field. This is. She was dressed better than when she was in love with Grover Bobby, with a Hermes scarf and a full-body name tag. And look at me, the real charter woman, a canvas bag with flip-flops. After a pretended hello, Grace Huxley swept over the two of us and said to me, Jane Du Bois, I have something to say to Grover Bobby. Can you avoid it? She said very politely, and I replied decisively, no, we just have an umbrella. Where can I avoid it? Grace Huxley. I pointed to the sports car. Your boyfriend's car is still in place. I can go in and hide for a while. Ha ha. Grover Bobby's lips twitched up almost imperceptibly, and his voice was flat. Just say it here. What's the matter? A sad look flashed across Grace Huxley's face. How are you doing? The resentful female voice, coupled with the sparse rain curtain, really has the flavor of an ancient Cheong Yao drama. I replied loudly for Grover Bobby. He's fine. He's sleeping well. He's eating well. And he's gained 3 pounds. Thank you for your concern. Grace Huxley looked at her in a heart-wrenching look. You with her? She with you? Everyone said that you were. She. Grover Bobby. How can you be so self-defeating? How can you betray yourself? Oh my God. What kind of face does she have to say these things? After all, she was someone who had been dating for a year, and her words were undoubtedly rubbing salt into Grover Bobby's wounds. I was so angry that I wanted to fight her, but Grover Bobby wouldn't let me go and just dragged me away. I'm so angry. I can play well. Why is he pulling me away? Oh, I must be distressed by my ex-girlfriend, and I am reluctant. This conclusion made me feel like I was being beaten with a stick. But what can I do? People are the person we talked about for a year, and I am only a creditor. And when I get to the place to eat, Grover Bobby asks me to order food, and I usually make up my mind. Grover Bobby doesn't have to be particular about what he eats. He can eat anything. I didn't look at the menu, and drank sullenly. No, whatever. Haven't you wanted to eat this for a long time? Grover Bobby then reacted. You're angry. I smiled and said no. She didn't say me. No matter what I'm angry with, you don't want to be angry with her. Grover Bobby cupped his cheek and watched as I looked angry. It's strange that he has been looking at me lately as if he were observing a small animal, a little distant, but also full of interest. It's not as guarded as it was at the beginning, and I guess I can see through that I'm a paper tiger, who can only play tricks. He sighed. On a rainy day, it's really unnecessary. If you get wet, you're sick. And didn't you make a reservation for this restaurant? There are already many customers on a rainy day, and if you pull it down, there will be no more seats. Oh yes. Grover Bobby. Besides, what's the use of arguing and winning? Is there money? Is there a bonus? Whose dignity lives in someone else's mouth? Hey, is that why he didn't bother to argue? I was in a much better mood. Also, Grover Bobby is the winner of the debate team, and if he really wants to win, he won't lose. Unexpectedly, a few days later, Grace Huxley came to apologize. She was pulled by her boyfriend, very reluctantly. But there is a saying that the economic base determines the superstructure. For no other reason, I recognized the license plate of her current boyfriend, a few 6. Once I saw it at the door of my house. Her boyfriend's father is one of my family's suppliers, and Party A has a natural advantage over Party B. The place about to apologize is the tea room near the school. Grace Huxley apologized for the tea. I'm sorry, Jane Du Bois. I shouldn't have speculated like that at the time. You have a lot of them. I hope you don't care. I picked up my teacup and blew on it to savor the moment. How could I be angry with you? You don't deserve it. Grace Huxley looked injured and vulnerable. It's no wonder that Grover Bobby likes her. She looks no worse than a star, and her figure and appearance are all first-class good. I didn't drink her tea, and when I was about to leave, Grace Huxley stopped me. Jane Du Bois, you have money. There are some things that don't hurt your back when you stand and talk. And Grover Bobby's family has such a heavy debt. What girl would dare to join him easily? Of course you have the right to leave. That's your freedom. Since she was going to fight, I accompanied, but you've been with Grover Bobby. Don't you know what kind of person he is? You know that you are just trying to cover up the fact that you hate the poor and love the rich. And you are just trying to seize the moral high ground. Her face was red and white, and I was right by what I said. I held up my phone and broadcast a video of Grace, Huxley talking to someone about Grover Bobby. You wronged him and spread rumors about him, thinking that this would justify your departure. That's what I look down on her, let's be honest. Grace Huxley. Grover Bobby is good at everything, but his eyes are not very good. He had been dating Grace Huxley for a year, and didn't really know her at all. The gentleness, thoughtfulness and obedience she shows are what boys like to see, and everyone thinks it is appropriate when the wind is calm. But as soon as there was a stir, it immediately dispersed. People are very adaptable. I used to be close to Grover Bobby, and he was very wary of me, guarding against me, but lately he has probably gone numb. And once we went to a lecture, I listened and dozed off, and my head was next to his shoulder. Until I woke up, he remained in one position, but I was uncomfortable, and I subconsciously wiped my mouth. You wake me up next time. Grover Bobby shifted his shoulder indifferently. It's good to wake up. Keep listening. He has recently taken the road of lying down and trying his courage. And when I do everything I can to find thorns in the sky, he is not angry, and he quietly watches me make trouble with those beautiful eyes, or do his own thing. He speaks English well, takes on a lot of translation work, and when I get tired, he will give me water at the right time. I drank it and most of the time I forgot what I was going to do. Grover Bobby reminds again. Jane Du Bois, is the live broadcast room you're going to chase about to start? Yes. I was immediately distracted. The day before yesterday was the end of the month, and Grover Bobby paid off his first account. I'm quite surprised. It's almost 30,000 yuan, and he hasn't graduated yet. Where can he make money? I later learned that Grover Bobby was not only a translator, but also a lot of planning jobs. He began to be unable to let go of his body to contact friends, and he was abused by me a lot, and his skin became thicker. One by one, he began to ask if there was a job he could take. I asked Grover Bobby to clean my property, which was a lot of renovated houses that no one was living in, and I said, you can pick one to live in, but on condition that you clean the rest, and if it doesn't meet my requirements, you get out. I hooked the key to my finger and flicked it, looking at him defiantly. This action is something I learned from watching a movie, and it's enough to make a man's fists hard. But Grover Bobby's face was no longer in the pain of being humiliated, and he watched me quietly. The corners of his mouth turned up a little, but he pressed down. Then he took the key and said, yes, deal. He seemed to be getting used to my big money, mean way of talking. Grover Bobby looks really good at work. He does things in a straightforward way, unlike other people who are perfunctory, and when he really makes up his mind to do something, he has no distractions and looks particularly charming. He wiped the top of the door, stretched his hand up, and the shirt tucked into his jeans would inevitably be pulled up a little, and his waist muscles were half exposed. I was stunned, and he suddenly turned around. Jane Du Bois, what are you looking at? Fatally, I was caught again. I've been caught too many times lately, and he has eyes on the back of his head. But I'm so calm now, and I don't admit it. Oh, I'm looking to see how you wipe. I don't have to be an overseer. His voice is loud. I am louder than him, and I will fight back, senior brother, if you don't look at me. How do you know that I look at you? Grover Bobby really looked at me for a long time and nodded. You're right. He debated the team, and he actually recognized my logic of beating a rake. He picked the corners of his mouth, smiling rather than smiling. It's your fault. Then you can continue to watch. I was so heart-pounding that I was so picky with my conscience that I glued my finger to the window, and when I found the dust, I screamed at once. Look, it's not wiped clean here. I'm going to deduct money. And what about these clothes? Why haven't they been folded? If you don't want me to oversee the work, how can you get it? Grover Bobby is not good at housework. He grew up in the family with 2 nannies, let alone cleaning, and he can't fold clothes. I was heartbroken. You can win prizes in the Olympiad. How can you learn to fold clothes? Grover Bobby said no, and I blurted out, then I'll teach you. I rolled up my sleeves and sat on the edge of the bed, folding his clothes in separate categories, and Grover Bobby looked up at me with a subtle expression, but when he noticed that I was looking at him, he looked away again. I don't understand. How is that possible? I slowed down again and folded as I taught. He asked, you spend so much money to take my family's debts. Is your family okay? I said no. Our family has a wide range of business. You want to escape, and my dad has a lot of ways to get people back. Ha ha. After chattering, when I came back to my senses, I realized that the whole pile of clothes had been folded. The corners of Grover Bobby's mouth couldn't help but pick up. A little can't help but smile. After the accident at his house, I rarely saw him laugh, especially if he didn't hold back, and smiled sincerely. I understand it now. Thank you for the advice, I reacted. Oh, he's fooling me. Grover Bobby carried the clothes into the closet and asked, don't you have a nanny at home? How do you fold them so well? My family didn't have money from the beginning. I rolled my eyes. I was still handing out flyers and counting signs on the street when I was 6 years old. I had a very awesome ability when I was a child. Guess what? I was proud. I know how many sticks I have eaten as soon as I hold them. So you see how good this era is. If we are willing to endure hardships, we all have the opportunity to counterattack. He closed the closet door and looked back at me. Jane Dubois, how can you have so much faith in me? Do you really think I can pay off these debts? It is very difficult to calculate according to the wages of ordinary wage earners. But you can. My confident tone softened Grover Bobby's eyes. In addition to the rebelliousness in his eyes at this time, there was also a clear light. Oh, do you have that confidence in me? That is, in my eyes, he is the best. But here, I still have to be mean to him. I don't have faith in you. I have faith in myself. I'm the most ruthless creditor. Grover Bobby probably wanted to laugh again, but he couldn't help it. Well, boss Jane Dubois, I'll live up to expectations and keep doing my best. He also changed the phone number notes in front of me, but before he changed it, he added an A in front of it, so my phone number was at the top of his address book. I want to see what he changes. He pursed his lips and slowly typed 4 words. My boss, Grover Bobby, has really improved, and he has become an employee. I was going to take him to a skewer and ask him to see what a sword was, and he said, but I'll treat you to eat. Okay, I'm so happy. This is the first time Grover Bobby has invited me to dinner. But I said, okay, anyway, I'm used to eating abalone and ginseng wings, so let's go eat a roadside stall. I picked and chose the app from left to right, and I chose the cheapest one per person. Grover Bobby, who is tall, saw me switch stores and reminded me that one was a good review, but that family is 30 more expensive. I said, the rating is so good, most of them are brushed. I look at this one and it's good. This is good and cheap. The 20,000 or 30,000 yuan he paid back was not enough for me to buy a bag, so I opened a separate account and deposited all the money he sent every time. Seeing me so calculating, Grover Bobby suddenly pinched my face. I was stunned. What to do by attacking creditors? I'm going to rub the foundation off for him. Grover Bobby rubbed the pinched area with his fingertips, very gently, very slowly. Does it hurt? He took the initiative to pinch people, and he was embarrassed to ask me. My heart was beating and I was confused, but I still remember the character. I murdered him, bullied the creditor. Be careful that I deduct your money. It's really no deterrent. At least Grover Bobby wasn't afraid now, and he smiled. The money I make is here anyway. You take care of the accounts, and you can deduct it. He stood under the street lamp, the warm light cast on his deep face. Grover Bobby was already handsome, and after going through hardships, he restrained his sharp edge, but his temperament became more calm. After rubbing his face, Grover Bobby let out a long sigh and concluded, Jane Dubois, you're such a little fool. Then he grabbed me by the wrist, and dragged me to the store with the best rating. I'm not stupid. Grover Bobby is. His roommates thought I was a bully, and once we went to have a supper, and some of his roommates said unabashedly, Jane Dubois, don't think that you can tell my brother if you have a few stinky money. This kind of talk, whether it hurts or itches, I listened to it as a joke. Grover Bobby took it seriously, and he didn't accept their rudeness. He replied in a calm voice, you'd better apologize to her. The roommates were furious. Grover Bobby, you're depraved. She's using you like this. You only sleep a few hours a day, and you're still talking to her. What do you call that? Stockholm Syndrome. It is only right to repay debts. Grover Bobby reminds in a gentle but unmistakable tone. Next time, Don't let me hear these words, or you will bear the consequences. I'm confused. Don't talk about them. I even suspect him in Stockholm. It's strange that I flogged him every day to try to make money, and he still thinks I'm good. But the roommates didn't dare to offend him openly, because Grover Bobby had recently become famous. He studied electronic information science and technology, and recently he took over a lot of foreign product evaluation and translation work. And when he got inspiration, he simply did his own evaluation and doctoral training, and did IT product analysis and commentary. There were only 2 people on the recording staff in the first episode, me and him. He appeared on camera, made a script, and I lit him and set up a tripod. In the later stage, he also did it single-handedly. He did it so seriously, and he was a personality of excellence, sitting in front of the computer for more than 10 hours, and repairing videos frame by frame. I was afraid that he would be tired, so I changed my way to persuade him. You don't have to be so rushed. You see, people can produce 2 or 3 evaluations a week, and you only produce 1 in half a month, and you are not in a hurry for a while. It doesn't matter if you are slow. Grover Bobby laughed at this kind of comfort for breaking the jar and breaking it. Jane Du Bois, you creditor is not doing anything right. Heh. I came over with a stewed tonic, but I made a good excuse. This is my dad's tonic. He is now married to a new wife. I am afraid that he will drink too much, and he will grow stronger when he grows old. So he will add my younger siblings and divide the family property. So I will steal the beam and change the pillar, and change it for you to drink. Grover Bobby took a sip and laughed so hard that he almost burst out laughing regardless of his image. After the first video was released, the number of views was not good. I was afraid of hitting his confidence, so I secretly bought a water army to brush it, and I also wore a vest to leave a message. While we were eating, I buried my hair in a comment, and was found by Grover Bobby's bag grab. He looked at my trumpet, and was not surprised at all. I know it's you as soon as I look at the IP address. Don't spend money next time. He worked so hard, but there were very few people watching, and I was in a hurry. Unfazed, Grover Bobby said, take your time, but do good deeds. Don't ask about the future. He's really not blindly confident. When the 6th issue of this series was reached, the traffic suddenly increased. Because the content is hardcore and highly enjoyable, it was forwarded by a technology tycoon, and the bosses of several major mobile phone manufacturers, and the traffic rose suddenly, and the number of views of a single video exceeded 10 million. The classmates who laughed at him, because his family was bankrupt, began to revolve around him again. The traffic came, and so did the ads, and Grover Bobby was still tired and sick after a month of continuous spinning. Who made him work too hard? Who didn't have a stomachache? I went to the kitchen to put the porridge on the pot, and when I returned to the study, I found Grover Bobby asleep in a rocking chair. He was so tired. He repaid more than 100,000 yuan in just 1 week, and if he continues like this, he will be able to pay off his debts in a few years. I'm happy for him, but I also know that after the money and debts are settled, I have no other reason to stay with him. The sun outside the window was so strong that I was afraid of disturbing his sleep, so I took off my shoes, walked cautiously to the bed, and lowered the curtains lightly. As soon as I turned around, I saw him looking at me quietly. Mom, it's so embarrassing. I immediately lowered the curtains. You sleep. Sleep before you can work. Do you need to charge the robot too? His gaze slowly fell on my feet. The carpet was made of wool, and it was a little prickly after standing barefoot, and I was a little cramped by him again, and I was somewhat cramped, and my 10 toes were picked up. In the middle of the night, the corners of his lips curled, and there were emotions in his eyes that I couldn't understand, like ripples on the surface of a lake, and the stars were connected to the moonlight, forming a gentle light. He took my slippers and half crouched down to put them on for me. Got it, I'll get some rest. I've always felt that Grover Bobby has been a little weird lately. He used to make his own ideas about things, but now he is used to asking my opinion, even if my opinion is not good, and the advertiser comes to ask for the price. He will leave it all to me, to Doc. I said it wasn't appropriate, but Grover Bobby insisted. You're my creditor, and it's best for you to negotiate the price. Even the money from Party A went into my account. He usually doesn't have much expenses, except for inviting me to dinner, inviting me to drink milk tea, and going to the doll to exchange coins a few times a month. He doesn't smoke or drink, and his expenses are very little. My well-informed girlfriend told me privately, Grace Huxley is getting engaged to a rich man, and she said that she would have a wedding as soon as she graduates, and she is really embarrassed to send an invitation to Grover Bobby for the engagement. Oh, what such a good thing is. When Grover Bobby answered Party A's request to do a headphone review, and I was about to go downstairs to pick up the delivery, Grover Bobby spoke first. Jane Du Bois, Grace Huxley sent me an invitation for the weekend engagement. Do you want me to go? He hit a straight ball and knocked me out, but I reacted immediately, and I said, since you've sent an invitation, I'll go. I didn't look like I had any guilt, which made Grover Bobby's face a little delicate, and he said with a little anger, then you can go with you. She didn't invite me. Grover Bobby, you are my creditor, and by inviting me, you are inviting you. I don't understand the logic, but I'm sure the most important thing is, okay, by the way, the engagement, we don't have to pay for it, right? Grover Bobby sneered and rubbed my head. No, if you don't need to go for it, what's wrong with eating and drinking for nothing? I dressed up for the day, put on a small foreign dress, and when I came out, Grover Bobby was stunned. He was also handsome in a straight suit, with his hair combed back into a big back, and we went to the engagement scene arm in arm, and Grace Huxley saw us, and smiled. Grover Bobby, you're really here? Grover Bobby smiled. Of course your big day is coming. Bless you. Unsuspecting guests are still asking, is this the best man and bridesmaid? It's so beautiful. It's a good match. Somehow hit Grover Bobby's laugh, and he smiled and thanked him back. In the past, Grover Bobby had high self-esteem and would never come, but now Grover Bobby is crawling and has excellent psychological quality. Grover Bobby says it's called ink black. The two of us are calm. We should eat and drink, and he is not stingy with the blessing scene, and he can't see the mustard at all. When watching the engagement, he also walked around, observing what kind of flowers were used, and looking at the style of the carpet. Once seated, Grover Bobby spoke to me of the matter. Jane Du Bois, what do you think of this kind of outdoor engagement? Do you like it? It's okay, but I'm a vulgar person. I still like to wear gold all over my body. It's festive enough. He said, that's okay. That's a Chinese style, a Western style. I was eating the little cake, and I thought it was a little strange, and he asked me what I was doing, but I'm smart, and I react at once. Oh, I see. Grover Bobby was slightly nervous. What do you know? I'm proud of my business acumen. Do you want to do a wedding test? Yes. I feel like no one has used the topic before, so you can try it. Grover Bobby's face, which had been smiling a moment ago, froze immediately. The engagement ceremony on stage also began, and Grace Huxley's new boyfriend, a clumsy fat man, held Grace Huxley's hand and gave a joyful speech. I observed Grover Bobby's expression, and reassured him with a false sense of, okay, you'll find a better one later. But the more I comforted, the more solemn his expression became. He rarely interrupted my comfort rudely. Why should I look for it? I haven't paid off my debts. I'm not in the mood. Heh. Do you blame me? I comforted him. There have been a lot of advertisers coming recently, but you have high requirements for Party A, and you have to pay off your debts at the rate of the last 2 months. Grover Bobby still didn't have a good face. It's early. Take your time. Don't rush. Me. Not in a hurry. I wondered if our debt relationship was reversed. Gossip is spreading at a rapid pace in schools. The news of Grace Huxley's divorce by her boyfriend's family spread to several colleges in less than half a day, and everyone's enthusiasm for eating melons was even higher than that of Bobby's family going bankrupt at that time. Grace Huxley ate her boyfriend to death, but unfortunately, the fat mom is a ruthless character. The future mother-in-law couldn't look down on her, so she personally slapped her and ordered her to break up. The fat mother made a back adjustment. It turned out that Grace Huxley lived with a married man in the society when she was in high school, and she had an abortion. She stopped her son's card and was grounded at home. And now Grace Huxley's wealthy road is about to be shattered. While watching the excitement, my girlfriend didn't forget to remind me, you can keep an eye on your Grover Bobby. Men can't forget their first love. She was also open-mouthed, and Grover Bobby was next door. When she said this, both of us had a big red face, like high school students caught by adults and in early love, looking at each other helplessly. I buried my head before him. He is not from my family. He has hands and feet. I can control what he does. When girls talk, Grover Bobby usually rarely interjects, but this time he quietly retorted to me, "You still care about me. You have to take care of what I wear every day." My girlfriend was secretly having fun on the side, and I was at a loss to be exposed. "Hey, who told you to only wear a tee in the morning? And you don't even look at the weather forecast, whether it will cool down in the afternoon. Do you think I'm happy to care?" Grover Bobby's tone was indulgent. "Well, so you're right. There's a scientific basis." Me. Walking out of the restaurant, my girlfriend went to get the car. I stood on the steps. The heat was still on my face. The summer was not over yet, and the air at night still smelled hot and sticky. Suddenly, I said, "Your family's debt will be paid off in 2 years. Grover Bobby's career is getting better and better, and there are more and more partners, which is like this in the internet era. Once it stands on the cusp, it can rise up at an unimaginably fast speed." Grover Bobby was stunned for a moment. Then he looked at me with a smirk. "Jane Dubois, I remember. Did you first say that you wanted to subtly rule me, and just look at my face? I'm red-faced. Damn it." He remembers it clearly, and even the tone of my words when I magnified them was exactly the same. "Have I gotten ugly lately? Or have I gotten fat?" He leaned closer to me, his tone beginning to doubt himself. I quickly shook my head. "No, he has a habit of fitness, and he will get up and do dozens of push-ups after sitting in front of the computer for half an hour. And his figure is still very good." He descended a few stairs, turned around, and smiled at me. "And are you still trying to do it now?" I'm a little upset. I kind of sense that Grover Bobby likes me a little, but I'm not sure because I'm not in the same category as his ex-girlfriend. Grace Huxley is tall and feminine, black and straight, and walks the path of a famous lady, getting up early every day to run, doing yoga, pilates, and has a perfect body. As for me, I like to dye my hair with bells and whistles, and I have no ambitions, and spending money is my hobby. The drawbridge theory says that, when people are in a difficult situation, the secretion of adrenaline is accelerated, and it is easy to have a good impression of people. But in fact, this kind of feeling is not liked, but just a reaction brought by the bodice instinct. What's even more annoying, is that after Grace Huxley broke down with the rich second generation, she really planned to eat back grass. I've seen her call and text Grover Bobby several times, and it's useless for Grover Bobby to block him. After all, everyone is in the same school, and she knows Grover Bobby's routine well, and blocked him several times. I don't care. Let Grover Bobby decide for himself. But all kinds of actions are blocked. When I received a message from the security guard that Grace Huxley was actually waiting for a rabbit in front of Grover Bobby, I immediately killed her. As soon as I got out of the elevator room, I saw Grace Huxley pulling Grover Bobby at the door, and begging bitterly, "Grover Bobby, I really have nowhere to go. The dormitory is gossiping. If it's convenient for you, can you let me stay here for a few days? I promise I won't disturb your..." Damn, I can't wait to go up and tear her at once. But Grover Bobby spoke first. "You're right, it's really inconvenient. You can go." Grace Huxley opened her mouth. She didn't expect Grover Bobby to be so determined. She always felt that she was different in his heart. "You still think about me? Otherwise why did you come to my engagement at that time? And you still looked sad." Grover Bobby wondered. "Didn't you go because you sent the invitation first?" And Jane Dubois said there was no need to give money. Grace Huxley seemed to be looking at an alien. You just listen to her." "Yes, I like her. Of course I have to listen to her." Grover Bobby, as for the confusion, "I'm just thinking about how to get engaged, how to set up when I get married. There are so many things to prepare. Jane Dubois still wants to do it together. I'm really a little worried." Me, I didn't even know what to do. And when I was still struggling with whether Grover Bobby liked me or not, he even thought about how to go through the wedding process, and which one to choose. I'm not thinking in the same dimension as him. Grover Bobby is indeed a non-romantic person. His strategy after me is to make money. and he has to make a comeback to give me a long face. On my birthday, Grover Bobby said in front of everyone. Jane Du Bois, thank you for turning me from a puddle of mud back to a person. Although at first you always used your debt to show off in front of me, you want to provoke me, always pretend to be fierce. But I know that you are worried about me. I translate English, and you turn pages while I'm dozing off. And although there are mistakes, you keep improving. I covered my mouth. If you make a mistake in translation, don't announce it in public. I like you, but I want to be with you in a dignified manner, and I want your dad to let everyone know that there is nothing wrong with the person you chose. Later, I learned that Grover Bobby also had times when he was not confident, and he was sad. You started to draw my face, and liked to look at me, and I was worried that you were used to seeing it, and stopped looking at it. I laughed to death. I'm afraid of you, Stockholm. I can't tell the difference between gratitude and love. Grover Bobby says, you're in charge of my money, and if I change my mind, I'll lose all my money. Me, it's too ruthless. Grover Bobby, so Jane Du Bois, you'd better relearn your finances and stop making the wrong card transfer. I'll just transfer the wrong money once. How do you keep remembering? I hugged him, like a dragon finally waiting for its princess. I said okay, I must be careful. Manage your accounts, manage your people, and manage you for a lifetime. The end.